A typical American moves over 11 times in their lifetime. Mobility is part of the American experience and can signify exciting changes. But sometimes people are forced to move against their will. This can take different forms: an eviction, an extreme rent increase, foreclosure on a property owner, or even demolition of a home. These types of moves are displacement, and they disrupt people's lives. In some cases, displacement can leave people without any other housing options. They may find themselves living in shelters, cars, or on the street. One of the most commonly talked about forms of displacement is eviction. Millions of Americans are evicted every year, and evictions are beginning to be recognized as a national epidemic. Some groups are more likely to experience evictions and displacement than others. For example, a study in Milwaukee revealed that 8% of white renters experienced evictions, compared to 15% of black renters and 29% of Hispanic renters. And on the whole, low-income households are particularly vulnerable to evictions. But evictions are not the only way displacement happens. Often referred to as soft evictions, landlords may put pressure on tenants to move by engaging in harassment, cutting off utilities, removing parking, ignoring requests to fix appliances, or failing to address other substandard conditions that threaten the health and safety of tenants. Extreme rent increases are another means of displacement. When rent is suddenly increased past what a family can afford, they're left with no choice but to leave their home. Even moves that seem voluntary may in fact be displacement when you look under the surface. For example, it is displacement when a young adult wants to move out of their parents' home, but has their options constrained by prohibitively expensive housing. They may be faced with a choice between staying put or moving out of their neighborhood altogether. When a family has to find a new home or has to move outside of their community, they may find themselves far away from their families and friends and possibly from their jobs and key service providers. This can lead to increased stress and even depression, impacting parents and their ability to support their families. Displacement pressures hit economically unstable families the hardest. When low-income households have to leave their homes, they often move to even lower-income neighborhoods. These kinds of moves can affect life chances, as neighborhood conditions can have lasting impacts on health, educational outcomes, and earnings potential. For one, studies show that your zip code is actually more important than your genetic code in determining life expectancy. And living in a high-poverty, under-resourced neighborhood has been shown to lower children's test scores and their earnings in adulthood. So while displacement is often seen as the effect of poverty, displacement to worse-off neighborhoods can actually intensify poverty conditions and inhibit economic mobility, leading to a vicious cycle. Regardless of the type of neighborhood a displaced family moves into, forced moves can have especially negative consequences for children. Kids often switch schools due to displacement, which is disruptive to their education. And even when they don't change schools, studies show that moving around can negatively affect their academic performance. Children's health can also be affected by displacement. Research has shown that children who move more often show higher levels of behavioral and emotional problems, increased teenage pregnancy rates, and increased adolescent depression. Taking a step back, it's critical to consider how displacement affects not just individuals and families, but also whole communities. Residents who live far away from other members of their community may have less political power as voting blocks are diluted and communities become less organized, weakening their ability to advocate for needed changes. Displacement is complex, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution for ending it. However, there are strategies that can slow it down. A range of policies, programs, and financing tools are needed to protect renters from formal and informal displacement pressures, facilitate the production of more affordable housing, and preserve and upgrade the existing affordable housing stock. Involving community residents in planning and decision-making about their neighborhood and region can and should be a key piece of all three of these strategies. Taken together, these strategies can help ensure that as new investments take shape across our cities and regions, they generate equitable and healthy opportunities for everyone.